Thank you very much. Now we are switching a little bit to not switching the topic, but we are switching perspective. We are moving into the social aspects, the organization, the profession, and the industry of geoscience. So first we have my question: what is gender? And then we have 4 answers. Is it social and cultural constructions of women and men? Is it a small electric car? New mobile phone model? Fashion clothing brand? Actually, I think there is a small electric car that it's called gender, but I'm not sure. But it's social and cultural construction of women and men. Of course, it is. So then let's start. First of all, why the question I wanted to discuss today is why do gender equality matters in geoscience? Of course it matters quite a lot. And you can see that when we talk to especially the mining companies, and it's the mining companies that I have been doing most of my research together with, and both together with, but also criticizing. But they are working quite a lot with gender equality. So gender is an important issue for them. And they say these are their answers. They work with gender equality because they want to be competitive. They need to attract skilled people from the entire population. The company image and culture must keep up with the rest of the society to be attractive. Gender equality and diversity gives more focus on a sound safety culture. And gender equality is an important base for social sustainable development. These are the words that are in the industry quite a lot. And also within the ENGIE project, of course, this is part of the ENGIE project is part of this. So first, I just want to say some short if you are not following me all the time to my conclusions, but this is what I wanted to say. Gender equality is important part of positive change and development and social sustainability, as I said. We see this a relatively equal number of women and men is a good way to create attractiveness. And this is why we have this ENGIE project, of course. And it's also an important step to reach gender equality. But it's important, and this is my main message today, is that it's important to do concrete changes at the workplaces to make it possible to create gender equality. And we can also see, and this is what I do quite a lot of research, that changes in technology, work, and organization can actually challenge gender stereotypes. And this is important to study. But sometimes it can mean more gender equality and sometimes less. And we need to know how to handle this. So this is the answer for my question. Gender equality is social and cultural construction of women and men. You see here on the picture, this is some of the social constructions that we do around us. This is from a mining conference in Germany. A couple of years ago, 2 years ago. This is their picture. It's giveaways. It had nothing to do with the conference, but this is pictures around us that somehow built up our ideas of women and men. And sometimes this means nothing, but sometimes it means something to the profession. What is the message for people coming to the conference? What type of femininity, masculinity is okay here in this industry? So the theory here is that there is nothing eternal or global in what we see as women and men or femininity and masculinity. It's something that we do, both women and men, together in social interactions. But I also want to emphasize that, of course, we are doing gender and gender is doing us. But it's not just only about these culture interactions that creates this kind of manifest gender effects on individuals' relations. It also that we put collective gender characteristics on artifacts, on symbols, on ideas, on work, and on professions, and also on geoscience. And this means that gender is built into how we into design and construction of artifacts. but not only artifacts, but also on work, organization, society, and in an industry and professions. And by that, creating latent gender effects on organization and workplaces and ourselves. And this is what I do research on. One of my main messages is that the more gender inequality you have in an organization, the more problems and hinders for positive change. So gender equality actually is expensive for the companies, and it's expensive, and it's also a hinder for development. And we can see both when we talk about organizations that have internal gender division. We have 50-50% women and men in the company or in the organization, but they are clearly in different professions or different places in the organization. You can also have gender inequality where you have gender homogeneous organizations or workplaces where you have 90% men, for example, or 90% women. You have that kind of professions in society quite often. And both, in my perspective, both of these type of organizations are gender unequal. And it's also hinders for positive change. In the first one, when you have this very clear stereotype division of women and men, there's a lot of open resistance and conflicts when you try to change something. And when you have this kind of gender homogeneous professions and organizations, they are much more slow in development, slow change, and also a lot of passive resistance. When we talk about male-dominated organization, and this is most often the case in the mining industry, it's very much male-dominated, at least in Sweden, but I know it's a global thing. Then we have a lot of gender problems in this type of organizations. And the first one, and also the important one that we can learn something about when we talk about geoscience, is that it's often confusion of competence and masculinity. The occupational identity and the gender identity become totally intertwined. For the majority, at least, not for the minority, but majority, and in this case, the man. It's so okay to be a mining worker for a man, but not so totally okay for a woman. Of course, a lot of women working in the mining industry, but they don't get any plus bonus point on their femininity being a mining worker, but the men, they get a lot of bonus on their masculinity. We can also see that gender homosocial relations and alliances among men in this type of organization. A lot of lust, they really like enjoying each other's company. They choose men and they like men. It creates a kind of free zone for subordinated and sometimes problematic masculinity, and also strong standards for how a man should be. And women are placed in the periphery, outside the job. And we see minority problems for women. And when we talk about male-dominated industries, this is a real problem, a work environment problem for women, that they meet visibility, stereotype roles, and exaggerated differences, and becomes an extra burden for the minority. But there are also positive pictures here, and this is what I really makes give me energy in my research, because I have seen that in organizations that have a little bit more gender equality in it, these type of organizations are functioning much better than the other ones. Gender equality gives better flexibility and innovation capabilities. So we see that when we have gender mixed workplaces, almost everything works better. And they do changes that the other type of companies just talk about. These type of organizations, they are effective and flexible and can change and follow and need to do this type of social changes in the organization that is needed to make good work environment for everyone. So perhaps we can say that gender equality is a prerequisite for sustainable production, better quality and development. But at least I could say that our research proved that gender stereotypes and gender segregation functions as hinder for positive development. It makes the organization slow, inflexible, and difficult to change. We can see the changes is happening in the mining industry. It's not smooth and not without resistance. And this is something we need to talk about when we talk about geoscience as well. Can we see this type of resistance going on? In the mining industry, we see that the changes, they are challenging the old type of mining work and mining identity, and creating somewhat paradoxical responses. And we can see that the old workplace culture are conservative and lags behind development, at least in the beginning. We can see the old mine workers' masculinity, which roots in the old mining work. And we can see this type of resistance towards new technology. And this is quite paradoxical that the men are against new technology. They are against safety. They are against sustainability when it comes to environment. They are against diversity of lifestyles for men. And they are against diversity. They are against gender equality and women minors. So it's quite a lot of problems that we have recognized. And they are also glorifying the old times and the macho masculinity, and following this type of old symbols rather than the new ones that the company wants them to follow. So this is the resistance that we can see in the organization. And much of this is based on the old type of gender ideas of what a real mining worker should be. Should be a man, brave, big, strong, and works underground with manual work tasks. And that type of mining work is quite obsolete and actually not existing, but the culture is lagging behind. We also see open windows of change, and this is the move from the old mining worker to this digital high-tech worker. The old type of macho culture at mining workplaces is becoming progressively obsolete. And we see new types of mining work identities, qualifications, they are emerging. So we see things happening. And if we take on this gender, look at this with gender glasses, we see that the workplace culture, the mining identity, what the real mine work are gradually changing. And we see much more gender equality. But perhaps this is too slow, and this is why we need this type of ENGIE project, for example. We need to do things actively to develop faster and in the correct direction. And gender and diversity perspective are good tools for that. That's why we need it in this project as well. And I also wanted to remind you, lastly, work for increased gender equality means to handle both change and resistance. And this is the problem, is that you need to be aware of the resistance that we meet in our everyday lives when we try to change gender culture, the gendered culture to be a little bit more gender equal in our organizations where we are professions. So I think I stop here. This is my last slide. Thank you.